Okay.
All right. This is Patrick Russell. I'm interviewing Jack Grinstead for the first time. This interview is taking place in Pensacola, Florida on November the 11th, 2022 on Veterans Day. And this interview is being conducted by the Making History Project. How are you doing today, Jack?
Doing good.
All right. Good to see you on Veterans Day. Also, happy birthday to the Marine Corps.
Thank you.
All right. So tell me, when were you born?
6 December 41, day before Pearl Harbor.
All right. And where were you born?
In Jackson County, Indiana, in a house, not a hospital, about 10 miles west of Seymour, Indiana.
Okay. And did you grow up there?
On a small farm. Dad worked at a factory in Seymour.
All right. And describe your hometown for me when you were growing up. What was it like?
Well, there's a little community with a grocery store and about a dozen houses called Surprise, half-mile south of Acme, 10 miles west of Seymour. Farmers and factory workers.
Okay.
It probably violated child labor laws. Were driving a tractor for it is very big.
All right. And what did your parents do?
Well, Dad worked at the factory and did some farming. Mom tended the house, cooked on a hot fuel wood stove even during the summer.
All right. And how big was your family?
I was the oldest of four, had 3 boys, 1 girl.
All right. So how was it to be the oldest?
What's that?
How was it to be the oldest?
How was, I don't understand about the oldest.
You said you were the oldest?
I was the oldest. I was almost 1 year older than my brother.
Okay. And where did you go to school?
Cortland, well, Surprise Elementary, first 4 years, and then that got closed. It was like 9 in our class, and consolidated with Cortland High School, which is about 5 miles west of Seymour. At one time we had 32 in our class, 26 at graduation, but it was the largest class they ever had.
Wow. That's
19 boys and 7 girls.
Wow, that's a small school. And did you play any sports while in school?
What's that?
Did you play any sports while in school?
I was a student manager. I was too little. Born a month later, I'd probably been in a lower class.
All right. And what about hobbies? Did you have any hobbies?
Oh, probably. We played softball a lot.
Okay.
Basketball.
All right. Any hunting or fishing?
Hunted squirrels. Went fishing. First fish I caught with a bean pole with a line. It wasn't a fish. It was a soft shell turtle. Mom made great turtle soup.
All right. And when did you join the military?
I joined when I was a freshman at college. My roommate came home, told me he'd joined the Platoon Leaders Class program. And my mom made me go to college. I didn't want to go. I had enough school. And it was involved 2 6-week summer camp, and then he was going to report to Pensacola for flight training. Thought about that for about 1 second. I said, I want to do that. I called my parents. My mom I could tell, wasn't keen on it. She lost a brother in Alaska and in the Army. I think it sounded like they were doing SEAL training. But I went ahead and did it, and glad I did.
So, what year was that?
I was graduated high school in '59, so this was in late '59 or early '60. I'm not sure.
All right. So, you enlisted in what exactly? What did you enlist in?
Well, went to 2 6-week summer camps. Between the freshman and sophomore year, and another time between the junior and senior year. And first, a lot of football players in the PLC program, and I'm trying to remember names now, like Brian Piccolo. He was one of the Squadron members. I was the first one across the obstacle course.
All right. And this is when you say between freshman and sophomore years. This is in college.
That was I signed up freshman year, and
All right. So are you still going to school while doing this, or no?
what's that?
Are you still going to school while doing this, the summer
Now?
camps? No.
Oh,
Back then.
I understand the question about still going to school.
When you were going to the summer camp,
Uh,
were you still going to school, or you
oh yeah, you had to stay in college and get your degree, or
Okay.
else you didn't get your commission.
got it? All right. So
You
you
became enlisted, I think, and got the real boot camp.
all right. So you finished college while doing this?
What?
Did you finish college then?
Oh yes,
Okay. Where was that at?
at the Indiana University of Bloomington. That was the closest and the cheapest.
All right. What did you get your degree in?
Physics.
All right. And then after you graduated, then you enrolled or enlisted in the
After I
military?
graduated, let's see, graduation was something like 3rd of June, or I think it was. Carol's birthday was the 6th of June. We had a graduation ceremony, commissioning ceremony. He got the picture of the commissioning there. There were 6 of us got commissioned. Hundreds of ROTC, Army and Air Force. They were in their blues and their greens, and we were in our dress whites. And they had like a chubby major for their commissioning. For our commissioning, they had a brigadier general. We were in dress whites, and his hair was as white as his uniform. One of the 6 Marines happened to be his son. His Brigadier General Joseph Butcher, and John Butcher was his son. Butcher, that's a good name for a Marine.
Okay.
Better than Jackie.
Uh-huh. And so when you enlisted, it was into the Navy? You went into the Navy?
Oh, the Marines.
Marines.
Yes.
All right. So, and what year was this then? What year?
I graduated in '63.
Okay.
But I had the 2 6-week summer camps behind me.
All right. So then you say the real deal happens.
Yeah, then we got down here to Pensacola, started flight training.
All right. And so you knew then that you wanted to fly?
Yeah, I wanted to fly. I remember as a kid seeing the C-119s fly over the farm low level, and that's when they were flying boxcars, and some of them would have the rear part missing. To see somebody standing up in there, I thought that looks like fun. Never dreamed that I would be allowed to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then you come down to Pensacola and you do basic here?
Yep, I wanted to go fixed wing fly jets, but they needed helicopters, so I got helicopters.
All right. And so how was basic training for you?
The 2 basic training, yeah, that was the 2 6-week summer camps. We did fine. That was much lighter then, more athletic.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then you were assigned to work on or to fly, I should say, helicopters.
What about?
You were assigned to fly helicopters.
Right. Yeah, I got my wings at Ellison Field in October '64.
All
And
right.
then got orders to New River, North Carolina, which was an H-34 Squadron. That was the last training aircraft flew. Ellison was H-34. First helicopter were the Bell TH-13Ms, like the bubble bell you see on the MASH movies.
Mm-hmm. That's what you first flew.
That was the first helicopters.
All right. And so what's it like to fly a helicopter? Tell me.
It's well, I operated farm machinery, so it was good.
Did you apply any of your physics to flying a helicopter?
Oh, I think so.
You have to be able to do 2 different things at least, right?
Yeah, you know that's the reason they have you do so many flights, so it kind of comes natural, like riding a bike. But the early helicopters were a lot of times you were kind of limited on power versus your weight, and So sometimes you had to get up some forward speed before you could get airborne.
Is it?
The H-34 in Vietnam, they rigged up one of the helicopters to fly mosquitoes, the mosquito larvae, and they had a big tank in there, and it was filled with the foul-smelling stuff, a lot of weight, and we would have to have a low fuel level in order to get airborne. No problem at Phu Bai or Da Nang or Marble Mountain, but had to go down to Chulai, and we'd apply full power, and we were still sitting on the ground, and had to put the cyclic forward to pick up speed, and then we were taking off like as a cliff, and get some airspeed on the way down so we wouldn't crash. I claim to have more kills in Vietnam, Dave Cardinal and I, if we count mosquito larvae.
All right. And so you're training, and you ended up where? Where was your first assignment?
Yeah, first assignment was HMM 263 in New River, North Carolina, and they were training to they were the next squadron to rotate to Vietnam, and before that happened, we had an impromptu formation about noon on Friday, and we're told to be back the following morning with our 782 gear at some ungodly hour, 4 o'clock or something like that, and they put us aboard the USS Okinawa. We went down to Dominican Republic, got back 29 days later. Now, while we were down there, we were wondering, are we going to be able to get back and move our families before we go to Vietnam, or are they going to keep us on the boat and take us there by boat? But they got us back, and I found out later that one more day and we would have gotten family separation allowance, which was $100. Doesn't sound like much today, but back then that'd buy over 300 gallons of gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
But we were glad to get back.
Yeah. All right.
Then we flew by airlines out of California over to get, and then got no, I forget how we got. I think it was Air America. I think. Anyway, we flew out of California to, I think it's Travis, to Okinawa. We were in Okinawa for a month before we went into Vietnam. And while we were in Okinawa, they requested 2 more pilots to volunteer to go ahead on over. Now that's a little disturbing. Are they losing pilots? And before we got in Okinawa, one of those pilots was missing in action. So that was a little unsettling.
So where do you land in Vietnam first?
That was Da Nang. And Marble Mountain is just to the east of there on the beach. That's where we ended up.
And what year was this?
That was in 65, October, November. I think maybe November of 65. No, October was. Okay, we got in Okinawa on October. November we landed in Vietnam. We spent about 30 days in Okinawa. While we were there, we got a mission to go out pick up a snake bite, I think it was, in Okinawa, and I was a co-pilot. Dick Hooten was a pilot, and we picked him up, possibly saved his life at night. And I'll get Dick Hooten. Well, eventually I got passed over for Major too many times, and let me back up even further. Dick Hooten was a test pilot. We got moved to Phu Bai. He was a test pilot. For some reason he got grounded. I don't know what he did to get grounded by the commanding officer, but he went out for maintenance, do a test flight. The engine failed. He made a successful auto rotation, no damage, but the commanding officer was upset because he was grounded. And then years later, when I got passed over for Major and reported to Quantico for officers training school, had 12 years as an officer. That was no good. on-job training. Still had to go to school. And the commanding officer was Major Dick Hooten. He and I were first lieutenants together, and now he's my commanding officer at Quantico Basic School.
There you go. So tell me what it was like to first land in Da Nang. What did it smell like, look like, feel like?
Well, it was, you're with your fellow Marines, fellow pilots and things, and so you felt good. We were in hardback tents off of the sand, right there on the beach, and I think it's one of my first flights. I got bumped. There was a forward observer. I think he took my co-pilot seat with C.W. Smith, and went out to investigate a possible enemy house or something like that. And they came back, and his co-pilot was dead. He'd taken her around. He had the nylon vest on, but the round went up in the armpit. And so he came back with a dead co-pilot. If I'd been the co-pilot, I doubt we would have been in that site anyway, but still a little disturbing, with thinking you might not make it back. My very first flight, we came back, doing the post-flight. I can't remember what the mission was, but doing the post-flight, we saw a round in one of the spars of one of the main rotor blades, and eventually all the flexing, that would start cracking, but we hadn't started cracking yet. But if you throw a blade, that's it. We'd had no parachutes. It wouldn't have done any good because your neck would be broken anyway by the violent imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
But
so what kind of helicopters are you flying there?
That was H-34. It was a piston engine. The exhaust was right there on the left side, and we all started losing hearing in our left ear. The helmets didn't have the rubber straps to hold the earpieces up against your health. So there's a little bit of play in there. The helmets got much better later on, but that started my hearing loss, and it's got a lot worse since. Noise and hereditary, I believe.
All right, so what kind of things are you doing with the helicopter? Are you taking people, or is it just...
What's that?
What are you doing on your helicopter missions? Are you taking people out? Are you...
Oh, yeah, inserting, extracting, a lot of times under fire, medevacs, resupply. I remember one medevac, the injured was a corpsman, and he was limping towards the helicopter. Marines are trying to get under and help him. He would have none of it. He's going to limp to the helicopter. That's a corpsman's job to get the injured on the helicopter. He refused their help.
All right, and so your base, tell me what it was like to live on base. What were the living conditions like?
Live on...
At your base?
At the base?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, hardback tents. We were about a couple feet up off the ground. Most of the time during the day when it was hot and humid, we were out flying. If you had a squadron duty officer at night, and then you had to stay awake, and, from morning till the next morning, and try to sleep in the tent with the sun shining on it. That didn't work very well. It'd be better to get a beach blanket, go out and lay in the sand in the shade of the tent. Mm-hmm. When we moved, we were there about a month. Our squadron moved up to Phu Bai, and our floor was the ground there, and there's a 4-man tent, small tent, and the water level is about 2 inches below the soil level, and we've got transferred to Okinawa for 3 months, and when I come back, they'd been replaced by hard tents. And I was sitting there writing a letter on the ground, on the cot there on the ground, and a rat runs out from underneath of me and got my .38 pistol right here, and I think I'll shoot that rat. And then I thought, might start a stampede in the camp. I think I'll let him go.
All right. And so what was Phu Bai like?
Phu Bai, well, like I said, first the tents were not as good, but when I came back their second tour, they had these tents. They were good. Kept you out of the rain. Sometimes you had to move your tent a little bit, or your cot a little bit to avoid a drip. But we had the mosquito nets on them and had the poncho and raincoat on top of that to shed any water that leaked. But most of the time, they slept well, although at Phu Bai, first night there, I don't know, it was about 3 or 4 in the morning, I think it was. There was big explosions going off, and I look around, there's about, I don't know, there's probably about 10 cots or so in there, and nobody's moving, and so I just stayed there, and I asked next morning, what was that about? And they said it was harassing fire. It was our artillery firing. And I said, who are they trying to harass? And I did some more the next night, and 2 or 3 nights later, you don't know if they fired any or not, because you're getting used to it.
How big was your base?
Oh, not too big. The helicopters, we had to back into the parking spots, and they were right next to the living quarters. At Marble Mountain, it was a long walk. You usually catch a shuttle bus to get down to the flight line. But the runway was kind of short. I saw an F-4 land there. He was low on fuel, and it's kind of high in the middle of the runway. He went out of sight, and a few seconds later, you see a dust cloud where he run off the end of the runway. I got 2 pictures of 2 fixed wings that flew together. We get a chance to show pictures, will we?
Mm-hmm.
One wing, they're all both on approach, and I think Phu Bai, I think there was just one aircraft on approach, and one wing goes inside the other aircraft and gets extracted, and they both managed to land. I can't imagine being a passenger on the one with the wing came in.
Yeah. So your base, it's defended by a bunch of Marines as well, I assume?
I think there's Army was next to us there at Phu Bai. Yeah.
Okay.
There were some enemy in the area, though. I know that there was a kind of nice-looking lady that tended the Oak Club bar, and I guess they found her head on one of the fence posts one morning.
Really?
So we had our own guards too. Had one guard, he was so afraid of snakes, he shot himself in the hand or foot because so he wouldn't have to stand guard duty in the Taftis area, the fuel area where the grass was kind of high.
So what were your dates of service in the Marines?
My what?
Your dates of service.
Dates of service, well, the 2 6-week summer camps in, let's see, one was in 1960 and the other was in 62. And then when I got my commission in June of 63, I retired, it was like February, March, where'd I think of 92. I second lieutenant, first lieutenant, got promoted to captain. Peace broke out, got passed over for major too many times. Wife and kids to support. I resigned, enlisted, became a gunnery sergeant. Couldn't fly the aircraft as pilot because of debilitating stripes on my arms, and requested navigation school, went down to Corpus Christi, and got navigation training using stars and sun and pressure to navigate across the ocean. I joke about that. I can find my way across the ocean, but I get lost in the shopping malls. And then came back to El Toro and was with the VMGR 352 the KC-130s, and Captain James was one of the C-130 pilots. I was his navigator. We went out to refuel some aircraft over the ocean, and while we were there in orbit waiting, Captain James asked, anybody want to sit in the pilot seat for a while? And I didn't volunteer, but all the crew were volunteering to me. So I went there, and okay, we're 20 feet low. I'll get us up to on altitude, make the turns at the right DME mark and things. And when he came back, Arlen Renz was the co-pilot, and Captain James was telling Arlen Renz how good that gunnery sergeant was. And Arlen told him, well, he got more flight time than both of us put together. He didn't know I was a prior pilot. Mm-hmm. But then I got sent over to Okinawa again, my second home, and with VMGR 152. And while I was there, I applied for a warrant officer program. Oh wait, I got in a warrant officer program before, I think while I was still Del Toro, and went there as a warrant officer. And while I was there at Okinawa, I applied to get back as on pilot status, and they needed pilots, and that was approved. So back to when that tour was up, back to Tustin, to the training squadron there, HMT 301, which had 53s and 46s. And after I completed that syllabus for the refresher, they asked me to stay on as an instructor pilot, so I did that. So I did like to move anyway.
So what was your highest rank in the Marines?
Captain.
Captain.
I would think I was like about the 9th highest ranking captain in the Marine Corps, but you had to get passed over to be there.
And so how long were you in Vietnam for?
I think, the first tour, it's like 9 months. 1 month in Okinawa, go into country, change squadrons, and that squadron was the next one to rotate back to Okinawa. So we were back to Okinawa for 3 months, so it was a 13-month tour altogether, so 9 months in country.
All right, and you're flying into combat zones?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. What was your most memorable event on that first tour?
Oh, let's see. Well, there was some Marines out in the hills west of Quang Tri. And the Marines there was kind of like a spot, not a very good landing spot. You could put a helicopter. The Marines were on the north side of that. They had the enemy on the south side, east side, and west side. So you're going into the zone with the enemy on 3 sides. And we had, earlier in the day, we had a Huey go in, get his tail rotor control shot away, and it goes to a preset setting. He was able to fly back to Dong Ha, make a run-on landing. He wouldn't be able to hover because of the loss of tail control, but he made a no-hover landing, kept his airspeed up. And then one of our H-34s went in, got the throttle control shot away, and the engine goes to a preset power setting, which is kind of high. He flew out, flying back to base. The ceiling was 3,000 feet, and he's trying to stay under it, but you get too fast, the retreating blade is not getting any lift, and the helicopter wants to flip. So he climbed up into the cloud to reduce his airspeed, got over the Dong Ha, shut the engine off, auto-rotated down, but he came out of the clouds. The windows were fogged up, but he couldn't see well and missed the airfield by 3 miles, but safe auto-rotation. So sunset was coming up for too long. We wanted to get one more try before the dark. So we had a flight of 4. The first 2, we had ammunition. The next 2 had food and water. And we knew there were medevacs they wanted to get out. So we go out there, and the leader goes in, tries to land where the smoke drifted to instead of where it came from, got us rotor blades in a tree. One of his crewmen got wounded and got some ammunition out, but I asked them if they got any of the ammunition in the zone there, and they said that where the enemy was. The enemy got it, and we managed to limp back to Dong Ha's where we were operating out of. So it's my turn next. So I go in. I want the.
Are 4 of you going in at the same time?
No, there's no room for 4 helicopters, just room for 1. And
but
barely.
You come in 4s and then 1 at a time?
1 at a time,
Okay.
right. And so I went in there, and I wanted the cargo door is on the right side, and I wanted my cargo with the crew chief to go be throwing it out. I wanted him to be facing the Marines, but there's a downwind landing, which just before you reach touchdown, there's a need for more power, and got to watch your turn, RPM. We call it keep your turns up, And just on short final, I got straightened on the RPM that started to drop, and arrived in a hover. And for some reason, I don't know why, I stayed in the hover. The crew chief must have been a new guy. He's kicking it out painfully slow. Seasoned crew chief would have had that out in about 2 seconds flat, and hovering there. And so I don't know. We hadn't been hovering very long, and we got 1 shot came in the cockpit. I heard that one, and my co-pilot, Major Mueller. He reaches down to the lower left pocket on his flight suit, pulls out the pocket checklist, which is very thick paper and water protection coated, and there turns the page, and there's the bullet that came in the cockpit. And he looks at me. He didn't say anything, but I think he sensed he wanted to get out of there. And so I stayed there a few more seconds, and that engine is loud. And I told him, I said, it's time to go, and flew out. I don't think we got all the ammunition out. And my crew, I understand my gunner was firing the whole time. I didn't hear that. And there was a sapling underneath of us that got cut down by the gunfire. And I tried to contact my other 2 helicopters, and couldn't raise them on FM radio. I finally got them on UHF radio, but post-flight revealed that we had, I guess the antenna or the wire to the antenna had got shot away, so my FM was inoperative. And so I didn't know what other damage was done, so I thought I'd go on back and, the other 2 helicopters decided, it was too hot, and they followed me back. We had a couple of Huey gunships. I wish that my Fox Mike radio would work. I'd recommend that they use up some of that ordnance before they returned, help the Marines out. And the next morning, another helicopter, H-34, went in the zone from another squadron, and he got shot down in the zone. And that's the end of the story. I don't know what happened. Let's see, there's another story. The one I got, I got back up to the first story there. I guess I got recommended the Silver Star for that, but rejected. You had to be the flight leader to get an award. And another time,
What's the difference between what you were doing, flight leader versus you were the pilot, though, right?
Well, probably Stan Petchalonis, the number 3 pilot, because I'm on the first section. He's leader of the second section. But he's probably one put in the award. I don't know. But on another hop, Stan was my co-pilot. We went in to try to remember what that was. Oh, there was a North Vietnamese regiment, battalion, there's about 300 strong or so, in the tree line, in the trees just outside of Quang Tri, and then the river was just north of us, and the ARVN, the Vietnamese army, was in I think they're dried up rice paddies. We were out in the open field, and so we went up there to pick up some medevacs. So they popped the smoke. I landed where the smoke was. The medevacs were on stretchers several feet out, and they start bringing them and get machine gun fire from the trees. So the carriers drop, hit the deck. I stay there, and even though we're getting hit by that machine gun fire, they get up to start going. We get a second burst, a third burst. They're finally reaching the helicopter just as an armored vehicle arrives, gets between me and the machine gun, and one round hits the window frame of the helicopter. Right, been a couple inches lower. It'd been right here, right in my head. The shrapnel hit my shoulder, but I didn't even get a scratch because I had my vest on. But we picked them up, took off. Stan Petrolone's is coming in to pick up some more medevacs. I'm reaching 2,500 feet, which we flew at because you're pretty much out of, not likely to hit you up there, although that first flight they did. The level, well, reduced power level off, the engine backfired. That's not a good sign. So I called Stan, I asked him to follow me, and I'm going to give him my medevacs because I'm not sure we'll be able to get the helicopter back to the base at Phu Bai. But so we landed, transferred the injured, and we nursed it back. And as we're leaving, the Arvin asked, I think it had an American with him, real good English, asked to get more support. And I said, I'll pass the word. And I did that when I got back. And they took them a helicopter. One round went in through the intake manifold, I think, which I think caused the backfire, and a round hit the cooling fins in one of the cylinders, but it didn't penetrate the cylinder. One hit my window ledge, and there were some more rounds. I don't know how many there were altogether. So that was in Yankee Romeo number 1. Aircraft number 1, first time in the landing zone. So they give me a Yankee Romeo 4, and by the time we get back up there, there were some other of our squadron helicopters resupplying and things. So we get back there, join in, resupplying the Arvin troops. And typically the Arvin were reported, once the sun set, they quit flying, but they kept the pressure on during the night. When it turned dark, they had fixed wing dropping flares so as we could see the area, and had to watch out you didn't fly into any flares that had burned out. And so my fourth time in the zone that day, and I'm in Yankee Romeo 4, just as I'm touching down, the engine quits. And so I make a radio call that the aircraft is down, we're going to hitchhike on the next helicopter that comes in. So a major, I can't remember who it was, but coming into the zone, he landed. We were running to this helicopter, pilot, co-pilot, crew chief, gunner with a gunner machine guns, taking them with us. One shot's fired and he takes off. So the next helicopter comes in and we run. That's Stan Petrolone's. So we get aboard his helicopter and go up to Dong Ha, and he's getting low on fuel. And the crew chief tells me he wants me to see if I can help him find the airfield because there was no lights there. He and I spotted it about the same time, and that was pretty much it for me. I don't know how much longer the helicopters flew with supplies in there, but the next day they went in and they found 300 and some bodies of North Vietnamese in those trees, and we got transported back to the base, and the damage on the helicopter engine quit, and I was on low fuel light, but you're like 30 minutes on low fuel light, and I was only about 5 minutes into the low fuel light, and the fuel gauge agreed with that, although there was a plus or minus several gallons possible error. They said, "Lieutenant, you just ran out of gas." I said, "No, the crew chief said there was a hole underneath the cargo door, and you may have to tear up the flooring to find out where that round went." "Oh, you just ran out of gas, we'll take some gas up." Didn't work. They had to take the floor up, and the round had hit the fuel line. And we're just lucky it didn't break into flames. But got a DFC over that one since I was a flight leader.
DFC, Distinguished Flying Cross.
Yeah, distinguished flight. Another was a medevac out of south of Da Nang. The Marines always say it's a secure area. Well, if it's a secure area, why do you have wounded? You know, and so wasn't really surprised. In short final, we take fire, and I did a steep turn left and put on a lot of power and made a hard left turn, and I think that's must have been where the fire come from, because the rounds at us, because 3 guys jumped up and ran, left their weapons, so we shot at them a few times, me and my crew in the Huey gunship, and then I went in and picked up the wounded. So I don't know if we hit any of them with or not. I know my gunner, my crew chief on the right side where I could see, had a runaway machine gun, and the Huey was coming in and almost afraid to fly into this line of fire. And I said, "Don't shoot the Huey." He got it stopped.
What was it like to fly your helicopter the first time into combat? What did it feel like?
Well, like I said, because of the 2 we had to send over early, and one coming back dead, I was a little anxious, but
you gripped a little tighter.
Oh, it's hard. Well, I don't know. When I left the United States, I was a co-pilot, and when we got to Marble Mountain, we were told there's no training. Co-pilots will remain co-pilots, and that was fine with me, you know. But then we had this big shift to 161, and their pilots are leaving soon. So we rotated back to Okinawa, and training recommenced, and I got my helicopter aircraft certificate there and become a pilot without a whole lot of experience, but you fly several hours every day. You get familiar with it
Real quick.
Normally at the base, you know, you maybe fly once or twice a week.
What was your group while in? Let's see. You were in Da Nang, then you were in Phu Bai. What was your group in Phu Bai?
The what?
Your group. What?
Who
you were assigned to at that point?
Oh, okay, yeah. Those Squadron 263 and 161 were part of MAG 16, Marine Air Group 16.
All right. And
Yeah.
did your wing have a call sign or a name? Or what'd you call yourselves?
Let's see, 263, our call sign was Power Glide. When I got to 161, it was Barrel House. And, most of my career I've managed to stay out of factory. I had a job in a dairy offloading the 2-quart, half-gallon cartons into containers and things. I did that for a summer job before I went to college. And summer I did not go to the PLC training at Quantico. I worked at the Golden Foundry in Columbus, Indiana. They poured metal and then machined it into parts. And my brother and I worked there and to check them when they came out. If they were too brittle and wouldn't machine, we had to discard them. But other than that, I stayed out of the factory, not counting bussing dishes at where I met Carol. But the call sign for the HT-18 squadron here at Whiting Field, call signs, guess what? Factory hand. So I became a factory hand after all.
Okay. And do helicopters pilots have call signs? Do you have names? Helicopter pilots? You know how pilots have names?
Oh, individual. I don't remember having one of those.
Okay.
I go gunner by now. Gunner, the nickname for warrant officers. The original warrant officers were artillery type. But just to confirm that my suspicions about people dying, when we were at Dong Ha, I was on the ground, I was looking out towards the mountains, and I see a black horizontal smoke going from left to right, and then it goes down like that. And I thought, I hope that's not an aircraft. Not only, it's about 10 miles away. Not only is it an aircraft, it's one of ours. Phil Ducott was the pilot, and his co-pilot was my assistant, Dean Ryder. He was my assistant, S&C, security or secret and classified files officer, and they had I don't know the crew chief and gunner's name and a corpsman. So there was like five there. Got shot down by our own artillery. They broadcast sailplanes, which is you call on certain frequencies, and they'll tell you where the firings are. And I know Phil Ducott, a lot of pilots you know for certain reasons. I know he checked sailplanes before he entered any area, but he got shot down. Tom Fergus was this wingman. He almost became a basket case after that. But a few days later, I'm flying towards the east, just past where the rock pile was, a big steep rock. I landed there a time or two. You could only get your front wheels on, tail had to hang out in the air there. But I noticed two explosions off to my left, and I checked the sailplanes. There's no firings broadcast for that area. About 10 or 15 minutes later, they broadcast it. That ain't good now. It's already fired, and I think that's what happened to Phil.
Did they make it out of there?
Who make it out of where?
The helicopter, the one that you were talking about that crashed.
Oh, the one that caught on fire? No, they were no surviving that. They might have been alive when they crashed and burned, but it was already on fire, So I suspect they probably did, possibly did before they hit the ground. Oh, but backing up to the one where I tended to land and did not hover. The only reason I can think of is I think had divine help that day. I think that was God's will that I did not land, because I think we'd got chewed up by all those rounds. I fully intended to land, did not change my mind, but I stayed there in the hover.
Speaking of which, were you ever injured while flying?
Nope. Back up. Well, it wasn't flying. My second tour, I was with Mac V. Sog, went into Saigon to get a picture of what it was all about, and then got signed up to Marble Mountain, the air liaison officer for Mac V. Sog. Most of the activity was working with the VNAF 219th Squadron over at Marble Mountain, and they flew H-34s. I'm pretty sure I got selected for that job because I was H-34 pilot. And the Vietnamese H-34 pilots would insert recon teams for the Special Forces. I was living on the Special Forces camp right next to the Marble Mountain there. But I stubbed my toe, by a big right toe, coming back from the hot showers. Lost my toenail on the way back to my air-conditioned quarters. Also had an air-conditioned office. And those Marines out in the boonies taking baths in a helmet and in the heat and the humidity, get no sympathy at all from those guys.
Mm-hmm.
I lost a toenail.
Yeah, that was your...
It grew back.
Okay. All right. And, well, you already talked about some of your living conditions. You had the benefit of air conditioning. Did you have other different experiences where it wasn't so pleasant? at some of your bases?
Some of my what?
Some of the other bases that you were stationed at?
Some of my bases, let's see, I think I already told you about Dick Hooten and I, the snake bite victim. I don't know, got to see a lot of places in the KC-130s. That was not combat. Oh, I did want to mention one accident. I was at Da Nang a lot as air liaison because that's where the 219th Squadron was. And a C-121, it's a 4-engine piston helicopter with the 3 tails. Some airlines had them. And it was coming into Da Nang on a windy, gusty day. And number 4 engine was shut down. And he almost touched down. The runway's this way, and he was kind of, like this way, and almost touched down. I guess they decided to wave off. Because the aircraft nose pitched up. You got 2 engines on the left side, 1 engine on the right side, and it did this, and the right wingtip hit a revetment, and it did like a half a cartwheel and crashed, an instantaneous big ball of fire. And I heard 7 died immediately, and I expect a lot more died after that. I don't know how many they had, but that was kind of catastrophic.
Yeah.
I saw an A-5 Vigilante land at Da Nang. I've only seen one in my lifetime, and he landed, I think he blew a tire, went off the left of the runway and banged up the left wing a little bit. That was, I understand, is supposed to be a bomber, but he's going too fast and the bombs followed him. Yeah.
Did you have any off time while in Vietnam?
A little bit. I was right there, especially at Marble Mountain, right there on the beach. Inflate my rubber mattress and go out there, get past where the waves broke, and lay there and soak up sun until I got wakened up by the waves again. Not much of recreation at Phu Bai. Of course, we were pretty busy, flying just about every day.
Mm-hmm. What were you able to do in Phu Bai during off time? What would you do to relax?
What is off time? In Vietnam, we didn't have much of that. In Marble Mountain, or in Okinawa, Captain Lynn Haynes, he kept edging me to go buy a motorcycle. They'd go out to a lot that had some climbs and things. So I finally went and got a motorcycle like his, 305 Scrambler, and got that. And took it back with me. That was fun. I get right. Highway 1 on Okinawa was the main highway. It wasn't much traffic. I never did get it topped out. You get up 70 miles an hour or so, you start thinking, what happens if the chain breaks or something like that? So I backed off. Yeah, snorkeling. In Okinawa, I did a lot of snorkeling. Some great snorkeling there.
Okay. And were you able to communicate with family while you were in Vietnam?
About the only way, letters, but the only way to talk was to go to a ham station and maybe get through, maybe not. When I was overseas the second tour, we had a mobile home and had it in the same mobile home park that Carol's dad did. And she got a call one day that she was down visiting my parents, that should stay there because there'd been some heavy rain, and our home was doing okay until the neighbor floated into it and knocked it off, off the thing. It got water damage, so she got up there the next day, I guess, and she wrote about what I just told you, and then she wrote another letter asking, well, what should I do? And I didn't get that letter till after the third letter, and that's when I heard somebody said they numbered their letters, and so we started doing that. But basically, when I got the second letter, I said, well, I think the second letter I got was your third one. I said, when we have a helicopter goes down, somebody's appointed on-scene commander. that's you. do what you need to do.
Okay.
And she did a good job. We had some steps up the wrought iron steps or whatever. I think that's the first time we had those. Had them nicely painted with gloss black. It got creamed.
Yeah. What was your proudest moment while in the Marines?
Oh, I don't know. I know we're the proud, the Marines, but I think I don't know. There were a lot of good moments. I enjoyed taking, especially training there in HMT 301 at Tustin, training new guys how to fly. I thought the H-53 was a great aircraft. I like the two engines outboard of the fuselage and the fuel cells outside the fuselage. I like that. I also went as an HMX, the Marine Helicopter Squadron 1, the Presidential Helicopter Squadron. They had the H-3, the H-46, the H-1, and didn't have the 53 yet. But we became helicopter aircraft commanders in the 46 and 53. You become a jack of all trades and master of none. Well, on my very first training hop in the 46, Mike Tivnan is taking me in, showing me how to do the pre-flight. He opened up the engine doors. You're inside the cargo compartment in 46, and you open up the engine doors that fall down. The two engines are there, and there's a little rod comes out, and a little thing rotates next to it, and they done checking the engine. I look up and I move. The thing's not tight. And I ask them, what keeps this from going off the end? Oh, it ain't supposed to do that. And so that was the introduction to pre-flight 46. I had some exciting times in 46 with engine failures, transmission chip lights, and probably the most memorable one is we were in a 46. We're at Quantico. We went down to Norfolk to unload a ship from President Johnson, I think had been to South America on a trip, and it had lots of stuff on, including I think an engine, a transmission, and things. We were heavily loaded with an H-46 Alpha, which didn't have the bigger engines. I'm co-pilot, and Major Zander's the pilot. We're staying below 500 feet because the civilian airfield stay under the earth traffic on our way to Naval Air Station, Norfolk, and he's smoking, and I noticed the torque for number one engine, torque number two are separating, and I'm looking over, and he's beeping it, and I thought, we're heavy. This is no time to be playing with the engine beeps. And he opens the sliding window, throws out a cigarette, and says, "Dump." That's when I realized, okay, there's an engine problem, and so he can't maintain flight, I guess. And so we're going down to the water. I've hit the dump switches, and we dumping fuel. And just as he flares, I secure him, even though he didn't tell me to, because I didn't want to be sitting in the midst of jet fuel. And I'm thinking the engine bubble's probably going to break, probably going to flood with water, or I'm going to try to open the jettison, probably not going to be able to because of the water pressure. I bet that water's going to be cold. And okay, after the water rises, then I'll be able to open the door. But the chin bubble didn't break, and so the water taxied to shore. Couldn't get it up out of the water. Had to get a winch down there to get us out of the water. But you're looking for submerged rocks and ships instead of other aircraft. And,
so you actually were in the water.
Oh yeah, we went low. We went low. There's a tunnel bridge that goes from Norfolk over into Maryland, and dumping fuel as we went over that highway.
All right. So you mentioned you were in the presidential helicopters?
2 times.
All right. Tell me about
yeah,
that.
that was a mistake. I on my fitness report, I requested HMX-1. X stands for experiment, helicopter experiment, squadron number 1. And, or X for HMX, helicopter marine experiment. What I actually wanted and didn't know about was Patuxent River on over into Maryland. They do a lot of testing. But it turned out to be mostly VIP flights. But Daryl Lowe and I got short-toured there a bit. We were not really checked, well, didn't have hardly any time in the VH3s. You gotta be co-pilot and then stay long enough to be a pilot. So they took a short tour to us because they had more time invested in the ones before us in the training, I don't know where Daryl went, but they sent me to MAC-V-SOG down in Saigon. And, but it's nice having air conditioning on those hot weather days. I never did meet Johnson. I was co-pilot with Nixon and through Agnew time too. I remember Agnew got on board and his a secretary or something. I don't know. It was a beautiful gal. The crew chief's eyes were about like this. That was kind of funny, but it was nice. I had an air station duty officer one day and night, and S2 was out flying, and he reported a UFO. I went out. I don't see any UFOs, and I think he was looking at a star or a planet. But there was a problem. The commanding officer was Joe Foss. He was a brother, I think it was, or a cousin of the governor of Nebraska or somewhere. But anyway, he was a commanding officer, and the president came in, and we always go from Andrews down just off of Washington National over the Potomac River, make a right turn after the Washington Monument to the White House lawn. Well, there were some protesters on the Washington Monument grounds. And at this time, the Air Force One pilot was like the boss of Marine Helicopter Squadron 1. And he said, that probably just encouraged the demonstrators. I think we need to replace you. And so he got replaced. As the intended replacement for him was a lieutenant colonel. I won't mention the name. I know the name, but we were having a picnic out at Lunga Reservoir at Quantico, and the colonel said there will be no hanging from the rafters. After he left, there was hanging from the rafters. People getting a little too much to drink, I think, and he got orders elsewhere. So now Ed Sample becomes the next in line to be the presidential helicopter pilot, the commanding officer of Helicopter Squadron 1. Well, he became the Helicopter Squadron 1 commander, but he's not checked out in the VH3 yet. So they're kind of walking on eggs right now, Eventually he got qualified, but it was, Colonel Fossey says, I'm not going to fight it. The Marines got to keep the mission, and eventually Air Force One pilot was not over the HMX-1.
So did you ever land on the White House lawn?
Yes.
All right.
Funny, first time I landed there, Tom Fergus, I mentioned him earlier, he was a MARCAD, so he had more flight experience than I did. They let the co-pilot go in and make the landing. He landed, and they got on the brakes soon enough, and it rolled off. They had these big plywood circles for your landing gear done, and it rolled off the edge, and they put the brakes on. Said Johnson, like I said, I'd never seen Johnson. He comes out and he looks down there. He sees that. He looks up at Tom and gets on anyway. Mm-hmm. And I landed. That landing gear was right at where the cross marks cross. That's where it was, and that's where it stayed.
And who did you pick up?
That would be Nixon.
Okay. All right, so that's also a great honor, right? I mean,
at one time we shared the mission with the Army, and the Army lost the mission after they flew one of them into the water. I don't know. I know you're not supposed to wear polarized glasses when flying because you see through the water surface level, and I don't know if that's the cause of the accident or not. But then we had the mission after that, whole mission, because they would alternate going to Texas to the ranch. I never did that.
So again, that's a great honor to be able to be that type of a pilot for the President of the United States.
Yeah, it was a great bunch of guys in the Marine Corps. You go from one squadron to another, you're going to know somebody, but usually you go from like H-53 squadron to H-53 squadron, or 46 squadron to 46 squadron, and but this was you meet a lot of guys you never met before, like Huey pilots. So 53 pilots, 46 pilots. Like I say, most of us get trained in all of them, but you can become a jack of all trades and master of none.
So the presidential helicopter duty was after Vietnam?
No, it started during Eisenhower.
No, I'm talking about you.
Oh, yeah.
Your experience.
After my first tour, and then my second tour, I forget where I was before that.
But did this come after your second deployment to Vietnam, the presidential?
Yeah, after I left Vietnam, I'd requested HMX-1. That's what I got. Although it's not really what I thought I was getting. I wanted something I could use my physics degree in.
Got it. So instead of experimenting, you ended up flying VIPs.
Yeah. I enjoyed lab experiments.
Now, your second deployment in Vietnam, is that where you're talking about Phu Bai? We've already spoken about that.
Where what?
Was that Phu Bai was your second deployment? Your second deployment was in Phu Bai?
Oh, no, my second deployment, I was at Marble Mountain.
Okay, Marble, but
They had, well, they had, I don't know what to call it, but anyway, it was in I Corps, at the northernmost, and they had two camps they operate out of, CCN, which stands for Command and Control North, which was in the Phu Bai area, but not at the Phu Bai, and CCN2. I may have the numbers reversed, I forget, but it was another camp further north.
And were essentially all your missions in Vietnam combat missions?
Yeah, well, yeah, basically, no training.
And did you have any particular type of rituals or practices you would do before you would go out on a mission?
Don't think so.
No? Nothing special you would do to get ready?
Nope, they recommended you only put 5 rounds in your revolver, but I carried 6.
Why 6?
Well, if it's a revolver, you gotta pull the hammer back. And when you do that, that rotates it to the next cylinder anyway. So really, your empty cylinder is going to be not in line. And I guess if you didn't pull back and something hit it hard, you could possibly discharge a round. But I toyed with the idea of getting a Western gun belt and put some more rounds. Although that would be no fun if those rounds start going off while you were getting burned.
Mm-hmm. And so your missions included evacuating, medical evacuations.
Medical evacuations, resupply. I remember one flight, it was Don DeVore. He was an actor on the Hazel show. He was our passenger. We took him out to a place in Da Nang where they had like a little booby trap cap set up for training and things like that, and there'd be something explode and he would jump and things. But that was not combat or resupply or that kind of maybe like a VIP flight, I guess. I was just co-pilot. Nick Sanders was the pilot on that one. He gave us each an autograph, which it's in my stuff somewhere. I can't find anything anymore.
All right. And I imagine it's a lot of adrenaline when you go out to these missions, right?
Oh yeah.
So when you come back,
it rises when you get shot at.
So when you come back, how do you deal with that raised adrenaline?
Oh, you just watch your gauges and try to make sure everything's functioning right, and compensate if something goes wrong.
Did you know any close friends that got injured or killed while in Vietnam?
Yeah, well, like Phil Ducat and Dean Ryder. Dean was my assistant. I can't remember which two officers went overseas and which one turned up went rather into country and turned up missing before we got there.
That was what we were talking about, the helicopter that was on fire.
Yeah, that was the one that caught on fire, and I saw it like 10 miles away. Didn't hear anything, of course, too far, but yeah, Tom Fergus was this wingman.
Have you heard the phrase, war is hell?
Yeah.
Do you agree with that phrase?
Yeah, well.
Yeah. How so? What did you experience that made war hell?
Well, I don't think I thought too much about it then, because we were busy. Most of our fights were busy taking care of our Marines, and you felt good about doing that. Today, I think Putin should have been taken care of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It is hell. Totally unnecessary in that case, in which case I'd be willing to go back in an aircraft to fight him if called upon, but can't see, can't hear, not likely to get called.
How old are you today?
I am 80. I'll be 81 next month.
Did anything from your experience from war impact you when you returned home?
Oh, I'm sure I had a lot of experiences. Like most of the people I saw that died were our own fault. You know, the artillery and the C-121 crashing. You know, those were preventable. After I come back, got signed for my first tour. Got signed to HMH 361. They sent me to Monterey, in California, for safety officer school, and so that's a lot of stuff for safety, involving safety. I enjoyed instructing at Tustin there. I remember one particular student. He was my student. We left Tustin, flew out to the mountains there. Said, "Take me to landing zone 3," and it's a one plane landing zone. You got hills on both sides. The students used to be in 500 a beam. Well, it's hard to tell where you're 500 a beam when the land is all hills, you know. So what he thought was 5 beam, he's really concentrating and shooting approach. And H-53, unlike the Bell Jet Ranger, has retractable landing gear. And I told him on the way out we were going to raise the gear, and did so. So he's concentrating on getting alignment and right altitude and things. Well, we'll go below 100 go below 60 knots and 75 feet, I think it is. I forget. You get warning, a landing gear warning, unless the gear is down locked. He continues on, and he lands in a hover. He's trying to put it down. I'm holding the collective so he can't do it. And I said, don't you hear this beeping sound in your headset? And how about this flashing light here? What's that trying to tell you? Took him a while to comprehend. And I said, wave it off. So we waved it off. And Nick, I said, you know, the metal shop would really be mad at you. You come in with a bent up belly. Maybe we should maybe design a list. Maybe we'll call it a checklist, and run over that before each landing, which is what he's supposed to do. But I bet you he never made a landing without doing the checklist after that. Totally embarrassed him. I don't know his name. I wish I'd remember his name. I wish I could.
All right. And then, but when you returned back from Vietnam, did you have any impact from that experience? Did it affect you in any way?
Oh, well, probably don't take every day for granted.
Did you have any like nightmares or anything like that? Trouble sleeping?
Oh, don't think so. Occasionally have a nightmare, but the last nightmare I remember is a bucket of depression coming down on top of me.
The what?
A bucket of depression poured out on me. It woke me up. But I really liked the Marine Corps, and I think they did real well by me. I would have stayed in. I'd probably still be flying today if they would let me.
Yeah. And then, where did you end what were you doing at the end of your career with the Marines? Was that the instruction?
Instructing here at Tustin.
Okay.
We had the tilt rotor was not in production yet, and the Marine in charge of the tilt rotor was Brigadier General Blott, Harry Blott, and he came down from D.C. He was my student, and he was a jet pilot, didn't know how to hover. So I put him through a syllabus. He's a good pilot. He did well. We had a Marine colonel. He was kind of the same situation. I don't know where he came from. He wasn't my student or something, but he had a hard landing during the training. He'd been up the helicopter a little bit, I guess. So when they had the winging ceremonies, they give Navy wings to General Blott, and the colonel, they put on a pair of bent wings, which was kind of funny. But General Blott was coming from D.C., coming down here, commercial air, going to get a rent-a-car, show up at the gate. We'd show up the gate in our uniform, in our car with a sticker, and still have to pull over to get vehicle checked out. And I called the provost marshal there to see if there's anything I could do, about he's going to be showing up at the gate, and anything I can do to expedite his arrival through the gate. And, no problem. And I said, well, this is before 9/11. This is before 9/11. So I thought maybe I could expedite his entrance on base, maybe give him a Domino's pizza sign for the top of his car, because they never checked those vehicles. And they did. They just said, just motioned them through. They took notice.
All right. And so your last activities were as an instructor, and where was that? Was it here in Pensacola?
My last Marine Corps duty, yeah.
Here in Pensacola.
I had 29 years, and I was going to stay for 30. I'd like to stay for more, but I was informed that after 30, because the Marine Corps is cutting back, you had to write each year explaining why they should let you stay past 30. And I had Tom Bailey was requesting me to go with him over to Saudi Arabia to help set up the training program for the Saudi Navy Super Puma guys. And that was good pay, tax-free if you stayed out of the country for 330 days out of the 365. And we just built a new house. I had 2 kids in college, and I thought, bird in the hand's worth 2 in the bush. So I went ahead and took that. Had to go to Norway to learn to fly the Super Puma. Well, the rotors turned the wrong way on that. And I told people I'm going over there to unwind. and then went to Saudi Arabia, and we were the instructors for the Saudi pilots.
This is what year is this?
92.
Okay. All right, so that's the first Iraq War. First Iraq War. The first Iraq War, the Gulf War, the first one.
That's the first time what now?
No, the first Iraq War.
Oh. What about it?
No, but that's when you were there, 92.
I don't remember. I don't think so. I don't think it was there yet. I don't know. I don't think we got much news over there.
Okay, so then you did some training, and then what else did you do after that?
Well, after I don't know how long it was a little over a year or something. I knew it was a temporary job. And I came back and I wanted to fly helicopters in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a 1 week on, 1 week off, kind of like semi-retard. That'd be beautiful. But they were never hiring when I was looking, and I looked around. Those truck drivers seemed to be pretty busy. I took up trucking. That was more exciting than flying.
Really?
Of course, you're dealing with you drive 500 miles a day. You're dealing with a lot of vehicles in the air. You seldom get close to another helicopter or fixed wing.
Mm-hmm. All right. Is there anything that you would like to add that I didn't ask you today?
I thought the Marine Corps taught me well. Do want to show you the pictures. You may want to use them.
Sure. One final question. Is there anything you would like to tell future generations?
Oh, I don't know. I would say get your education, at least high school. I was upset about going to college, but from my experience, the guys that were shade tree mechanics, physics majors, or farmers or stuff operating machinery, I think tend to make better pilots than people with the high degrees in psychology or something, history or something like that. But so much of it has evolved now. You got to know how to push buttons. I'm not too good at that. But when those buttons fail, you got to take over.
Yeah.
I got a good example of that. I think I'd like to take cross country, take 2 students and go up to Indiana, visit family, to have some nav hops on the way. We're going in, the student's on the right seat, the Bell Jet Ranger, and he's calling up ahead, and his trigger switch fails. That's no problem. I'll take over and make the radio calls. And I don't want to stay in Tennessee overnight. We're going to continue on until we get to Indiana. So we get refueled, we're taxiing out. Ground tells us to switch to tower, and I go to do a roger that. Mine broke. So I sit down on the skids, take my government pen, ink pen, use it to push the little pin that holds the rocker switch, push it out, remove the trigger, and put my finger in there, and I tell the student, I hope this is DC and not AC, because there's a difference. You'll get shocked if it's AC. And I was able to contact them, and we were able to continue the mission.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, very good. Well, I want to thank you, Jack, for sitting down with me today and sharing your story. It's been an honor and a privilege, and I want to thank you for everything that you've done for our country, and have a very happy Veterans Day today on November the 11th.
Well, I'm sorry we lost that Vietnam one.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.